Let's, yes, I have a question.
I'll still wait the 30 seconds.
Oh.
It is 6:30 on the dot, so I'm going to start. Good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Marsh on behalf of the Calvert Commission for Women, the Calvert Concept, and the Calvert Library. Thank you all for being here. Just a couple quick words about the different organizations. So the Calvert Concept is a nonprofit that's based here in Calvert County with one simple goal, and that is to turn the dream of home and business ownership into reality for hardworking individuals. We invite you to learn more about the Calvert Concept by checking with any of us at the end of the program, or we have literature in the back. The Calvert Commission for Women is a commission from the Board of Calvert County Commissioners, which is designed to basically learn information that's important for women and girls in the county and kind of take that back to the commissioners and to also help with programming. One of our upcoming programs, we have a clothes closet. We have an open house for the clothes closet, which is the third Saturday of every month, which provides free professional clothing to any woman in the county or girl who would like that for job interviews or just for regular life. And again, that's the third Saturday of every month. We also, all three together, do a financial literacy series, which is what you are here for. This is the last Wednesday of every month. In April, we have financial mindset, and May will be career change making. So those will be the topics. The library does a wonderful job putting up summaries, and you can check more about those programs coming up. Tonight, though, is all about Business Law 101. And I'm very proud to introduce our speaker, Edsel Brown. Edsel brings a distinguished record of leadership across business, government, and law. He spent 29 years with the U.S. Small Business Administration, serving in several managerial roles, including the Assistant Administrator for the Office of Innovation and Technology, working with small business innovation research and small business technology transfer programs. He also served as the Assistant Administrator for the Office of Business Development, on a variety of programs that way. Earlier in his career, Edsel worked as a financial analyst in the Small Business Investment Company program, managing a portfolio of publicly backed venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. He has testified before the U.S. House Committee on Small Business and participated in numerous House and Senate roundtables on entrepreneurship, innovation, and economic development. He is an accredited small business consultant. Currently serves as the chairman of the Southern Maryland Minority Chamber of Commerce, board member of the Calvert Concept Charitable Corporation, member of the Calvert County Chamber of Commerce, and former member of the Calvert County Economic Development Advisory Commission. He's also the owner and managing member of the law office of Edsel Brown, as well as the Edsel Brown LLC business, which is a small business consulting and advisory firm. He has a wealth of experience in this. Edsel is, I think we're going to ask for questions to be held to the end for the presentation, but please do store up your questions. I have given Mr. Brown lots of questions in advance. All of my questions were about side hustle questions, that small business on the side, and what do you legally have to do versus what can you do under the table. Mr. Brown will make sure he answers all of that for everyone. Also have just a sign-up sheet I'm going to pass around. You're going to see that there's a category that says committee interest. What we're really looking for on there, not for you to sign up for a committee, it's just how this sign-up sheet is written at the moment. But if there's any other financial topic at all that you are interested in the county bringing to the community, if you just put down what you think would be a benefit for the county, that would be really great. It'll help us shape the rest of our calendar for the series.
As Kat said, I usually speak fairly quietly, so I'm going to speak up tonight. First of all, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. Hopefully I will be able to share some information with you that will help you move along. I'm going to hold off the questions until the end of the program, but I'm going to be looking for some audience feedback on the way there because I'm sure you don't want to just see me standing up here and boring you to tears, right? So we want to make it interactive. So let's get this started. Here we go. It's a bad start. I'm gonna stand over here so we can see it. If you look here at the screen, you can see what our objectives are. Yeah. I'm already blind. Much better. This screen will outline what I'm looking to accomplish today. And look, if you look up here, hopefully your reason for being here will be addressed by what you see on your screen. If not, we'll try to accommodate whatever that interest is in our hour that we have together. So what we want to do by the end of this session, we want you to understand the legal foundations of starting a business, learn how to choose the right business structure, identify key contracts every business needs, recognize legal risk and reduce them, understand basic employment law responsibilities, learn how to protect brand and intellectual property, and be prepared to avoid legal mistakes. The goal here, obviously, isn't just for you to start a business, but to have a firm legal foundation. As she indicated, I served at the SBA for about 29 years, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with that stat that most businesses fail within 5 years, that business being started. So, everybody starts their business with, let's say, the gold at the end of the rainbow. But part of the reason that you're going to get to that point is doing all the strategic things you need to do on the way to getting there. And hopefully I can help lay some of those things out. This is where we're going to start getting some audience participation early. I want to kind of get a feel for our audience. So the first thing I want to ask is, how many of you are in the idea stage? In other words, you haven't actually started your business, you're kind of looking into it, you kind of know what you want to do, but you haven't quite started. If you're in that category, raise your hand. Okay? Who has started a business, but has only been in business for a little less than a year? Okay? Who has been in business? Well, I'll say who's been in business between 1 and 5 years? Okay? So anybody been in business for more than 5 years? Okay. Well, one of the things I want to point out at this point in time is success leaves tracks. So as you look to go into business, you're not alone. There are a lot of resources out here. This is one of them, the library having these ongoing programs, as well as the organizations that are participating in the program. There's resources out here, but you don't know what you don't know. So it's wise to get out and network with other individuals like yourself that are looking to move their businesses forward. And more importantly, with organizations like the Chamber of Commerce's that are operating here in Southern Maryland and Calvert in particular. And also we have SCORE, which is a group of retired executives that can provide you with assistance. The Small Business Development Center here in Calvert County and throughout Southern Maryland and the state for that matter. So those are some of the organizations that can help you. And if you need additional information, I can help share it with you. At this point in time, even though I'm holding off for most of the questions at the end, those of you that are in business, what is the legal issue that you're facing or have faced that has challenged your business? I think everybody here is in business. So what has been a legal challenge that you've had to face in your business? Anyone? Okay. Well, that's the one area that I don't address. But but
Business falls under the P4 LLC, not that, F4, all the different options.
okay, excellent question. We're going to be addressing that very shortly. I just wanted to see if there might be a topical area that I might need to include that's not up here right now, but we can hold off to the end. Um, One other thing I want to share with people, because like she indicated, I'm also a small business consultant as well as an attorney. Anybody that attends any type of thing that I do, you'll be sick of this book because I don't want to commit blasphemy, but for me, this is the Bible for early entrepreneurs. If you're familiar with the book, raise your hand. The E-Myth, E-Myth Revisited. Well, I'm going to get a plug-in for them. If you're not familiar with it, I would encourage you to consider purchasing it because the book really lays out a lot of things that you're facing or will be facing in your business. It helps you bring some order to your business and it helps you think outside the box. But again, blend this with the other resources that you have available. Yeah, there you go. Um, okay, good. Well, there you go. There's no excuse. You can get it here. Um, how many of you have a business plan, whether you're in business or thinking about business? Raise your hand if you have a business plan. What? Nobody has a business plan? You have to have a business. If you're in business, you heard what I said at the very outset of this discussion, that most businesses fail within the first 5 years. If you don't have a business plan, you're playing with the odds. Let's just put it that way. Please, I don't care if it's a simple business plan, you need a business plan because that's your roadmap for success. And if you don't have a roadmap, where are you going? It's just like going out here on the highway saying you want to go to, I don't know, Toronto, Canada, and you just get on the road and start driving. How are you going to get there if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a map? So please. Okay, what is business law? Business law governs how businesses are formed, how agreements are enforced, how owners are protected, and how disputes are resolved. So that's a broad framework for what business law is. Of course, there's a whole lot of nuances in between each and every item that is indicated up there. Why does business law matter? Why does it matter? I mean, we all know we're all concerned about getting sued or suing one of our clients who didn't pay on time or something like that. How do we get there? Oh. Um, why business law matters. It protects your venture from legal pitfalls, helps ensure compliance with Maryland and federal laws. And I just want to dwell on that for a moment. You know, you're not only looking to meet Maryland's laws, you're also looking to meet federal laws. So this is why you have to look before you leap, depending on the nature of what your business is. You know, every business is going to have different nuances. If you're a contractor, you're going to have certain nuances. If, let's say, if you have a hair salon, you're going to also have different nuances. There are broad-based items that I'm going to bring up tonight that apply to any business, but you're going to need individual licenses and insurance coverage that are going to depend on what kind of business you have. And you can see the key at the bottom here in the red. Most legal problems don't come from bad intentions. They come from lack of planning. So I want to underscore that, the planning. Get that business plan. Wait a minute. No, we're good. Okay. Kathy over here brought this up a couple of minutes ago in terms of the proper structure for starting your business. After you have your business plan, and this is why it's important to have a business plan, your business plan is going to help you determine what type of structure your business should have. I'm going to go through them. The first business I want to talk about is the one that probably most of you in here already have if you're in business already. And that's a sole proprietorship. If you're out here selling anything, you have a sole proprietorship. You're in business, okay? If you're out here selling umbrellas on the corner, you're a sole proprietorship. A sole proprietorship, there's no legal, here's a key. A sole proprietorship, you have no legal separation between yourself and the organizational entity. The organizational entity is you. And I'm just going to be blunt about this. And the problem with that is, since it's you, if there's any legal problems that come up, it's you and your rear end they're going to be hurting. That's the best way I can put it. Keep it clean. It's high personal exposure. Okay, you could be doing well, things are going well with your business, but one of your clients sues you for some reason. Something comes up and your client sues you. Well, you can be personally liable for whatever comes out of that transaction. So that's why you're going to see why I'm going to encourage you to at least get one of the structures that I'm going to outline. Again, the owner is personally liable. The second one is a limited liability company. The limited liability company is sort of like a Swiss knife. If any of you all are familiar with a Swiss knife, you've got all kinds of different attachments and it can kind of cover a lot of different things. It's not just a can opener. You can do a lot of different things with that can opener. Well, that's an LLC. An LLC will provide you protection, a level of protection. It will separate your person from your business. So your LLC will be one thing, one entity, and you're separate from it. Your personal circumstances are separate from it. There's flexible taxation. I know someone brought up about taxation. The good thing about an LLC, it gives you a lot of flexibility on how you're going to be taxed. I have I have one LLC, and I can tell you it's very beneficial to be able to just take care of your tax requirements with your Schedule C. It's very simple. But again, one of the things I'm also encourage you throughout this is obtain professional assistance early in the game. An attorney, it doesn't have to be me, but legal counsel and an accountant as you pull out, because you don't want to pull out and start doing things and you make some mistakes that could cost you some type of legal jeopardy. It'd be well worth the cost. And the LLC today is the most common type of legal structure that small businesses undertake. When I first started doing business back in the mid-'80s, I'm telling on myself, there were no LLCs. There weren't LLCs. Okay, a corporation. Back to the time I'm talking about, there was just corporations. Now, a corporation is also a formal legal entity. It's somewhat similar to a LLC in that it's a formal corporate organization, but it requires a lot more formality. There's a lot more documentation that you have to do. There's a lot more reporting that you have to do. There's a lot more requirements. And one thing, if your business is looking to obtain investors long-term, you might want to consider a corporation. But the one thing I will say to you, though, is you can also transition an LLC out to a corporation and become a corporation. So my advice, I shouldn't be giving any advice. This is educational. I'll just say, from my perspective, for a small business just getting started, an LLC is more attractive. That's the best way to put it. There's a lot less documentation, a lot less requirements. A lot of your businesses here are either just going to be one or two people in the business, and the LLC lends itself very favorably toward that type of structure, one or two people involved in it. Partnership, anybody in here doing business for profit with another friend or relative? Okay. You are? Okay. All right. Do you have any, are you an LLC? Okay. Okay. Yeah, an S corp is a particular type of corporation, but it has tax advantages. You have to do it by a certain period of time after you set it up. But see, I'm staying away from all that tonight. That's why I encourage you to get a tax professional, and that's why you need it at the very beginning. You need an attorney and a tax professional. You may not need them again for a while, but to help you make sure you make the right decisions to get your paperwork in order. But a partnership is very risky. That's why I wanted to drill down and see if you have a formal entity. Because similar to a sole proprietorship, you can get your fanny into some big trouble in the corporation because each one of the partners is liable for everything that all the other partners do. So you could not, one of your partners can be doing something, you have no idea what they're doing, but they can bring the whole partnership down. And not only the partnership entity similar to a partnership, but also you as an individual partner. So if you have a partnership, first of all, I would encourage you to have a written document outlining what the responsibilities are for everybody in that partnership. But unless there's some type of particular advantage that you have that partnership, like a limited partnership for some type of real estate investment, that type of thing, I would highly encourage, again, encourage, I'm not giving advice. I would highly encourage you to consider one of the other structures, LLC or a formal corporation. Okay. For those of you that have already been down this road, this is going to be old news, but I'm going to try to walk at those who haven't formally set up, and I'm going to do this for an LLC. I'm going to walk through what you're going to do for an LLC. The first thing you have to do is check and make sure your name is available. The last thing you want to do is go through all the motions, get everything set up, and then that name's not available. So, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. Also, file articles of organization. The analogous thing for a corporation would be articles of incorporation. They're analogous with one another. You have to pay the filing fee, obtain an employer identification number, and there's annual compliance. I'm going to get into each one of these in a moment. One thing you'll see about my presentation, I repeat some things a few times to make sure you get the message. Okay, this is how you create your account. So before you can do anything, you need to go to Maryland Business Express. So you might want to even take a peep at that today if you've never been in there. You know, you can just Google, I didn't write down the link, but you just Google Maryland Business Express. And what you'll do is you want to set up an account. You can't do anything unless you have an account. So you go in there and you'll create a user account and you can see any of your basic information, your login, and that's what it looks like where you're going to be logging in at. This is the step-by-step to actually look up the name. It's fairly simple. You know, once again you're in Maryland Business Express, and it really just boils down to type the name in there. I'm not going to make it more complicated than what it is. You'll just type that name in there, and it'll tell you immediately if it's available or not. Hopefully it's available, you can move forward. And if it's not available, you just have to have a backup name. Okay, this is the steps to actually register the LLC itself. Again, you're in Maryland Business Express, and what's going to happen is you're going to have a choice of the different types of organizational entities, corporation, and blah blah blah, etc. You're going to pick LLC, and you can see the draft form I have over here to the right. You know, put the LLC's name, principal office. Here's one item I want to dwell on a little bit. Excuse me. You have to have a registered agent. And all of you, I'm sure, live in Maryland. You can be your own registered agent. You can be a registered agent for your organization. There are organizations for a fee that will be your registered agent for you. And what the registered agent does is that person or that entity is responsible for all interactions with the state. So when the state sends, when your report is due, and I'll bring that up in a minute, or any other correspondence they're going to have, it's going to be with your registered agent. So you make the determination if that registered agent is going to be you or someone else or another entity, but make sure somebody that's reliable, because you don't want to have your entity not be in good standing for not meeting some requirement from the state. Okay, so make sure you have a reliable registered agent. Now, when it comes to the purpose of the LLC, you can make it in line with whatever type of business that you're doing, or you can make it very broad, like, you know, all activities that are legal in the state of Maryland. That way you can do anything. But think about how you want to do it, because it's going to limit what you can do. If you just say you're a contractor and you just say activities related to contracting, well, if you decide to do something else that's outside that, technically you could be brought up on that because you're operating outside the framework that you established for your business. Everybody got that? That's the key, that articles of organization. Now, here's another very important item. With a corporation, I think most people are probably more familiar with a corporation, articles of incorporation, bylaws. Those are the key components with a formal corporation. Well, the LLC has the articles of organization and the operating agreement. Now, here's a key that a lot of people get lazy with, so you can mark this down too. The articles of organization are not required to be filed by the state. Let me repeat that. The articles of organization are not required to be filed with the state of Maryland. The registration form I just showed you, that's required. $150 for the registration. You get it, you'll be registered in about 2 weeks. Your operating agreement is not required by the state, but make no doubt about it. Make sure your LLC has articles of organization when you start, because it's very easy to get lazy. Oh, I don't need that. That's not required. And the other thing is, you can have an LLC that's just you, and you say, the heck with it. It's just me. I don't need that. Or there's just two of us. You can have multiple member LLC. No, make sure that you have it in place. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but you can see some of the components that should be in there or can be in there. When it was formatted, the principal business address, registered agent. What's the purpose of it? You see what I was saying here? This is what I was talking about the purpose of registering. Say, to engage in any legal business activity permitted by law in Maryland. And then list the members that are there. And then also you want to identify what the officers or duties are within the organization. It can be changed, just like a business plan. It can be changed, but you want to at least have a framework getting started. And again, you can move forward when it changes. You need to make the change. Okay. Employer identification number. This is another item that you must get, and it's fairly simple. You can see the directions that I've provided up here. The key is to go into irs.gov. Once you get in there, you can see apply for an EIN. You can have different options to pick. Again, partnership, different entities. You're going to choose limited liability company, and then you're just going to provide your key information. And as you can see, you can't do this till after you have your LLC. So if you apply for your LLC, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get the formal response from the state. Then you go in and establish your EIN. But also make sure you get that operating agreement in place too. Make sure you get those fundamentals. And if you look here, look at the bottom, your employee identification number is required to operate, bank, and grow your business. You're not going to be able to, like old Monopoly, do not pass go. You won't go past go if you don't have your EIN number. And also, a lot of financial institutions require you to have that operating agreement. That there's some language in there about the LLC has the ability to open up a bank account. So a lot of them will send you back home to get that operating agreement, even open up your bank account for the business. Once you get your business established, the fun just begins. And the state of Maryland is going to be your buddy between taxation, as well as, especially right now, what's today? The 25th of March. Annual reports are due on April 1st. So if you have a business, you have a $300 fee. If you have an LLC, you have a $300 fee that's due to the state of Maryland by April 1st. And along with that $300 for, excuse me, the report, you have to actually submit an annual report. It's really not that complex, but you need to get it done. It's easy, especially as a small business owner, to get caught up in actually operating your business, that some of these dates can slip through your hands. So when you start off with your business, please identify the framework you're going to operate on and stick to it, because nothing's worse than starting to do well in your business and then you trip over your own feet. Before I get into this, I'm going to bring my buddy back up here again. One of the things I can hear Catherine saying, we can't hear you. Well, one of the things that this book is really good at pointing out is the struggles of an entrepreneur when you first start. When you first start your business, you've got this pie in the sky idea, something that you're doing. And in most cases, someone who starts a small business is really taking some skill set that they brought from being employed. There's a skill set that you have here, and then you start a business. And instead of just having a job with that skill set of your expertise, now you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're a marketing person, you're like 5 or 6 different things. And what happens is you get pulled away from the primary reason that you even started the business. So one of the things you really want to do is kind of map out all the jobs that you're doing. And as you start to grow, and hopefully you start taking on employees, you already have their description kind of written because you've been doing it yourself, right? So again, another plug. This is one of the focuses of my presentation tonight. This is where we're going to get some audience participation. How many of you have your business on the side of a full-time business? So in other words, you're working a 9 to 5 or something to that effect, but you're starting a business or have a business on the side of that. Anybody? Nobody? Oh, I didn't even see that. Okay. Well, this is for you all. The first thing you have to do is review your employment agreement. And please be sure to pay close attention to what your agreements say, okay? Because you can get into a lot of trouble, okay? Review your employment agreement, watch for non-compete or moonlighting clauses, avoid conflicts of interest, do not use employer resources, clarify ownership of intellectual property, and maintain strict time and financial separation. This topic is near and dear for me. As indicated, I worked at the Small Business Administration for 29 years. And I've had a side business from the very day I started at SBA. So all 29 years, I had a business. I started off, I used to do financial planning, and well, I was an investment broker for several years. Even after I had my law degree, that was a greater interest for me. But I gradually, as I went through my time at SBA, I decided that I liked the business law, so I started doing that more. Plus, I got tired of hustling around. Investment brokers, you're hustling. Let's put it that way. You're a hustler. But the main reason why I'm bringing this up is as follows. I was the poster child for outside employment at SBA. As I said, I got clearance the very first month I started at SBA. I got clearance to do the financial planning and stocks and that type of thing. No problem. Went right through. No, because we have an ethics office. You had to go through the ethics office. And I've read everything. I'm telling you, I read our Code of Federal Regulations and our SOP for my agency, and it was no big deal. And it was approved very quickly. Well, about 5 or 6 years later, I said, well, even though I'm not doing anything, I want to get it cleared, so I can do some legal things. If I decide to do it, I want to be able to do it outside of SBA. Well, when I put that in, it was like a bomb blew up in SBA. And I was quite surprised because I had done my due diligence the same way I had done for doing the financial planning type things. And I just couldn't see any reason why I couldn't do that just like I did the financial planning. Well, the gentleman, I'm saying gentleman, I'm smiling when I say it. The gentleman that was the head of ethics at SBA, he had a thing about anybody being able to practice outside of SBA. And his argument was, there's no way that you can do that without having clients calling you during the day. And I was, excuse me? Yeah, well, the nature of what I was going to do, it was going to be sport and entertainment. It was going to be very limited. It wasn't going to be like criminal or, nothing like that. There's going to be a lot of calls. So to make a long story short, I challenged them because I went to ethics officers at like 5 or 6 other agencies and just pitched it to them. If this was in your agency, what would you do? And they all said it would be no problem. So to make a long story short, this is why I'm telling you I'm the poster child. I threatened to sue SBA, and I got approved 2 weeks later. So I'm just saying, when you're doing something outside of your employment, you want to make sure that you have everything in order and don't give them any opportunity to get on your case, so to speak. Another thing that I'm gonna bring up, and again, this is myself. I almost forgot about this. I had a Liberty Tax franchise in Annapolis, and my wife, and I got that clear too. That was no problem. And my wife would be there all day. My wife would be there during the day, and I would go by there after work. Drive from Washington, because I was in Washington, from Washington to Annapolis. Well, if those of you familiar with Liberty Tax, to have the person out there waving. Well, whenever our waiver didn't show up, guess who was out there waving? So anyway, I was fairly good friends, not with the head of ethics, but like his deputy. He was a good friend, as a matter of fact. And he told me one day, he said, man, it's a good thing you got everything cleared. I said, why? And he told me somebody that I thought was a friend of mine who had come to the ethics office and said, how can Edsel be doing that? How can he be doing this? And I would go out there I had Fridays off and on weekends, obviously. But somebody that I thought was a friend that worked in my agency was trying to, inquire, how can I do this? And let's say, get me in trouble. That's the best way to put it. So anyway, there was no issue with the ethics because he clarified it. But this same person came to my office and was talking with me just like there was nothing on, like we were best friends. So again, I'm bringing up these 2 examples for you so that it hits home. Make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's, because you just never know who's looking. That's the point I'm trying to make. You just never know who's looking. And it may be the last person you think would be looking. And share this with your friends about the sidebar, because I'm sure you have some friends that have a part-time business. And again, please emphasize to them, even though it's part-time and they may not be doing that much with it, they still need to consider starting an LLC. It only costs $150 to provide a level of protection for yourself. All right, we finally got to part two. It's going to go a lot quicker. Needless to say, when you're in business, you need to have some contracts in place. And the first thing about contracts, and this is like law school 101, and that is you have to have a valid contract. You have to have an offer, a consideration, an offer, an acceptance, and consideration. And it has to be mutual intent by the parties. And what that would be her offering to sell me 20 widgets for $50, me paying that $50 to her, and both of us having the intent for this to be a valid transaction. Because sometimes there could be some scam transactions and you won't have valid offer, acceptance, and consideration. Okay, why do written contracts matter? In many instances, they speak for themselves, but what does it do? It clarifies expectations. You know, if you just have an oral agreement with somebody, there may be a variance between what the two of you understand. You know, you could understand one thing, they can understand something else, and it could be legitimate. So you want to make sure it's written down so both parties know exactly what they're getting into. And if you don't like a term, then you want to get that changed. Protects payments terms. It defines the scope of the work. This is where a lot of businesses have issue, defining the scope. What are you going to do and how are you going to do it? And it limits disputes. Anybody had any problems with non-payment? What were the nature of those issues, if I may ask? How did it turn out?
We're still fighting.
Keep fighting. But just imagine how bad it'd be if you didn't have the agreement. It was just purely oral. Okay. Well, again, that's why you try to get it all in that agreement. I mean, sometimes you can't. I know what you're saying, but to the best of your ability, get it all in writing. And if it needs to be renegotiated, you know, you agreed it to X and Y, but you know, through the course of the transaction, you can see it's changing. That's the time to try to either have an amendment to it or just have a new contract. Okay, here are some of the essential business contracts. A client service agreement, an independent contractor agreement. How many of you are independent contractors? One. Not really. Yeah. Yeah. Partnership agreements and non-disclosure agreements. I'm going to get into these agreements just a little bit on the next slide, I believe it is. Yeah. All right, client agreements. Again, here we go with the scope. You want to define the scope of what's going to take place to the best of your ability. What's the timeline? What time is the work going to start? What time is the work due to be completed? And what's the payment? So to the best of your ability, you want to get those terms firmed up because as the young lady in the back pointed out, disagreements happen. So the more that you can put in that agreement, the better. Independent contractor agreements. Define the work relationship. And I'm going to talk about independent contractors in a minute. But just let me make this point right now. Just because you or the independent contractor call themselves an independent contractor, it doesn't mean they're an independent contractor. It depends on what they're doing, what their work they're doing, and what the relationship that work is to the contractor. Operating agreement. I don't know if you remember, the operating agreement was that agreement that was associated with establishing your LLC. That's the operating agreement. Well, all right, personal versus business liability. I've kind of been talking about that. That relates to keeping your assets separated between you and your company. Don't blend them because that can lead to problems. And I'm gonna pick up my pace. I see that I'm taking more time than I anticipated. Um, Piercing the corporate veil. What this means is if you have an organizational entity, and again, as I've been discussing this whole time, is it provides you with a level of protection. If you're blending personal and business assets together and, maybe taking money from your business to yourself, um, it can skew the line between your company and you, and it can possibly cause you liability, especially if you get sued or something. They can call piercing the corporate veil. They can come after you personally, even though you have that formal LLC or corporate organization. So make sure you keep your resources separate between your business and your personal, and you'll stay out of trouble. All right. And types of insurance, I'll just go over these very briefly. So you have the organizational entity providing you protection, but you also might want to consider getting some insurance, general liability, professional liability, workers' compensation, and cyber insurance. Cyber insurance is really becoming popular these days with all the data breaches and, a client looks to buy something from you and somehow someone gets a hold of their information. So you might want to consider cyber insurance if you're doing a lot of online business. All right, this employee versus independent contractor is basically outlining what an employee would do versus what an independent contractor would do, and what can happen if, by chance, the person that you have identified as an independent contractor winds up not being an independent contractor. Somebody calls you on it, then you could be subject to back wages because that person will have been considered an employee, tax penalties, and state investigations. So if you're in a situation where you're bringing somebody on as an independent contractor, look at those topics on the right-hand side. Make sure they're all in place for you when you're establishing an independent contractor. If not, they're going to be considered an employee, and it could possibly bring you some liability down the road. All right, Maryland wage, an hour basics. I'm just going to put this up here so you can see it. And let me just also say this. This presentation is being recorded, so you'll be able to see all this. And if anybody wants the actual PowerPoint, I'm more than glad to share it with you. Yeah, because it's long, believe me. Okay, some more on employment law. I'm just trying to quicken up because it's going, I ran my mouth more than I thought. All right, okay. This is one of the areas that I specialize in is intellectual property, copyrights, and trademarks. And I'm going to be real quick with this, though. The most important thing to remember is when you establish your company, your LLC, in this case, you're going to have basic trademark protection on your company name here in Maryland, but that's it. Doesn't protect you the rest of the country. If you want to get national protection, you need to go to United States Patent and Trademark Office. And I'm going to breeze through this because of our time, but you'll see it all in the PowerPoint. Remember, trademark protects your brand, logos, brands, slogans, that type of thing. That's what trademark protects. Copyright protects original works, written documents, movies, videos. You can get a copyright. Well, it depends on a copyright. There are 45 classes of goods and services for a trademark, and you have to pick which ones that you're going to need. And there's also 2 components in terms of what you could apply for, but I don't want to get into minutia. But you can go to USPTO. I think I've got instructions on how to do it. And the same for the copyright. Copyright is only $35, so it's very inexpensive. one thing I want to point out about trademark, it could take you over a year to get your trademark. So if you're thinking about doing it, it takes a good little while. Okay, well, let me back up real quick. You know, if you have a dispute, these are the type of alternatives you have in dealing with it. I know a lot of LLCs incorporate arbitration in their agreements. Or if you want, you could do mediation, but arbitration, you can have a third party that's going to make a decision on what takes place, as opposed to litigation. It's going to be a lot more costly and time consuming. And I had two case studies in here, but I'm not going to go into them. One of them is one of our C4 clients who we're helping out. He's doing real well with his business. But some of the things that we need to do are some of the things that we're talking about. He's got a good organization, but he doesn't have an LLC. And he doesn't have some of the licenses that he needs for as a contractor. So he's been doing it, but you know, as I indicated to him, you're just one client from raising hell that's going to cost you your whole business. So. And this one, I have a young lady from my church. She's she plays piano at our church, and she does music lessons. And I brought this up because, you know, you think about music lessons, you know, she's just, you know, helping out some or providing services to some of the kids at the church or, you know, at the school system. Well, same thing. You can get yourself in big trouble with just something simple like that. You want to follow the same things that I've been saying about everything else. I encourage you to get an LLC. You might want to consider insurance. And plus, there are other particular nuances with her situation because you're dealing with kids and they're going to be under the age of consent. So you've got additional issues there you have to deal with, which is a lot different than just saying, hey, I'm going to sit down with Johnny and teach him how to play the flute. You know, you want to cover, again, your posterior, because simple things that you take for granted can get you in big trouble. So that's why I say, take the time to put your structure and your protection services, whether it's insurance, in place so that you can sleep at night. Questions?
I wrote down something we're going along.
All right.
Have a son, and if he was wanting to start his own car detailing business, as a minor, should I be setting up an LLC for him with insurance, or do we kind of just let minors run their own little neighborhood side hustle without a concern?
I would probably lean on the side of you establishing it and having him being part of the organization that you establish.
So he's like an employee of the LLC.
Yes, yeah,
And have insurance for that?
yes, definitely. Mm-hmm. That's unique too.
Like they go in the car, okay. Oh, and then do you recommend in general, because I know you said that for Maryland, your name is already considered trademark. You
Yeah.
think that businesses that set up in Maryland should go ahead and trademark their logo? Or start that process? I know you said it can take up to a year. But do you recommend they have that not a big deal?
I'll say this. It depends on your business. That's why I keep coming back to your business plan. And for those of you skipping over your business plan, that's a bad mistake because the business plan is going to help drive a lot of things that we're talking about. If you're going to do business outside of Maryland, you know, if you have a business that you're doing it online and it's going to other places and you're selling goods and services outside of Maryland, definitely. But if you're not, I don't see why you would need it. Yeah, I mean, if you're a mom and pop shop right here in, you know, Prince Frederick and you're really not doing anything outside, there's really no need. Yeah. Because one other thing I'll say about that is what could happen if you don't get it trademarked and you're doing some business outside, even though you're just based here, there could be some company in Timbuktu, Wisconsin, that has that name, and they grow, and then they usurp your name, and then you have to change your name or be sued after you've been in business for a number of years, but they've grown so much that they're just kind of blocking your name out, and they've got deep pockets. So, yeah. Sorry, Mike.
So at the time that you initially check, maybe that name is being used, but the business is not in good standing. Can you then register under that same name? Once you see that now.
You're saying you're not in good standing?
Business is using that.
In Maryland? I would say yes. Because basically, if you're not in good standing, you're null and void. So if somebody is in that situation, I would highly advise them to get back in place. Because as I said, if you're not in good standing, it's just like you're a non-entity. You're a non-entity. Yeah.
For the LLC owners, are they just treated like a W-2 employee? That's how they get paid. W-2.
They can be. Yes. Or W-2
Is the LLC
yeah.
just another W-2?
Can be, yes. Yeah. Oh, is the owner just another W-2 employee of the LLC? I would say yes. But the one thing that I would definitely advise you to do is, do you have an accountant? Yeah, I would get not just this question, but I would get a list of questions or potential questions that could come up in the near term and pose those questions to him or her. Yeah. Look, yeah, that's why I say go to your, is it a CPA or just a regular accountant? Okay.
Is a service mark the same as a trademark? They had a service mark for their business when they were applying for a trademark.
They're very similar. I would just say that a trademark is a little broader than a service mark, but they are very similar.
You mentioned that everybody should have a business plan, even if it's a simple business plan. What are the components that you think are necessary for a simple business plan?
The management, breakdown of the management, the financials, the marketing, where are you now? Where do you plan on being in, say, 3 and 5 years from now? I would say that those would be the core components that at a minimum that you need to have, because those are the kind of things that you need to update ongoing. You know, as I said, you know, you're going down the road, you're never in the same place. You know, 2 months from now, you're going to be somewhere else. You may need to update it, but you know, you start out with a certain management team, that may change. Your financials, you know, you're going to be able to gauge how you're doing versus what you predicted you were going to do. And you may have to change your direction based on your financials. Your marketing plan, again, that could blend in with your financials as well. How are you going to get where you want to go? And then you may have to adjust your goals, 1, 3, 5 years. Yeah. Sir.
Is this for aspects, someone who's gonna be a 1099 independent consultant for a company should be aware of? Or is that just something like employee related?
Well, as you indicated, you're an independent contractor. So I would like to see what kind of insurance coverage that company has. And depending on what you're doing, even though you're an independent contractor, you might want to consider some coverage for yourself. My other question would be, what are you going to be doing? Okay. Well, hopefully you should be good. You're going into law enforcement, knock on wood. So what I was going to say is depending on what you're doing, you might want to establish an LLC. But based on what you're doing, no, needless to say, yeah. And good luck. That it?
I'm right on time at 7:20.
Well, I had the clock right here.
That was amazing. Thank you for coming out tonight. I'm going to say that Mr. Brown will be here if anybody has a couple of minutes that they want to ask him a couple of questions afterwards while we are cleaning up. April, again, is financial mindset, everything that you should be considering if you want to change your financial mindset or goals. And then May is career change making if you